If you're anything like me, you will think that the teachings from Jesus don't look like a lot of Christianity. And we're trying to figure out what Jesus is teaching, thinking that something is wrong here. Something is wrong with this religion, but something is right about what there is. And this is difficult. And I'll cover that in this video. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. So first of all, I want to say that there is a pattern that we are following. This pattern is a self-healing pattern that emerges from all of the material from antiquity. And I'm talking about from the very first flood story that comes from the Mesopotamians, where the world had gotten too full of people and it was too noisy and too raucous, and it's time to have a flood and get rid of everything. This idea of purging oneself and getting back to a simpler life began to emerge in our earliest writings. This teaching is there, and it's being used in all of antiquity to carry this teaching. I will tell you that the template that was identified, it's called the hero's journey, or the hero with 1,000 faces. It was a template that was identified by Joseph Campbell, but Joseph Campbell, I will tell you, didn't have it all the way. And that sounds arrogant because, he was really up there, but he was very mystical. He stayed in that realm of looking outward and the Mother Earth and supernatural and all of that. If you use it in your psyche and ground it and get rid of all the supernatural, what you find is interactive steps for self-healing. And he didn't have to do that, so he didn't find that. I had to do that, so I did find it. Here's what the path basically is: that few are chosen, that you must turn inward, and that you have derogatory issues inside of you that come from your life that are there based on your experiences in life and how you named or judged those experiences and put them away in your subconscious, in your mind, in your soul, what they would have called a soul. And that these are emerging and acting out on a repetitive basis. And we can see them based on the fact that they're repetitive. And we understand them by knowing that they are motivated by something. We don't look at the final result and go, that's the problem. We go, this is the final result of something. What motivates it? Let's go back to the beginning point and find out what we put away in our perceptions that is causing us to have this continue to emerge. And that we deny those things because we're afraid of them. There's a fear barrier there. We have shame, or we just have a difficult time facing things. And that in doing so, that keeps them in place. So we must look at them, illuminate them, bring them into the light. That creates a healing. There's a forgiveness that takes place. This pattern is emerging through all of the material, but it's not being taught in plain language. It's being nested in a variety of ways that's going to make that teaching carry. And it's being updated from place to place. It emerges in, I said, the earliest teachings, and it shows up in Hebrew teachings, in Chinese teachings, in Indian teachings, Tibet, all of the religions from around the world, Egyptian teachings, and occultic type work as well. They're all outward-looking vehicles carrying this nested pattern. This pattern is what we're looking at. But as time goes on, there's actually things being added to it. And by the time we get to Jesus, there's a whole bunch of things that are there that didn't exist early on. Instead of just saying, flood your earth to get rid of everything, which is saying get rid of all of your convictions, your beliefs, empty yourself out of all of the things. That's basically all it's telling you. Later on, we're getting instructions on how to, that you need to forgive who hurt you, that if you're looking to have a good life, if you want to live in the graces of God, but you realize you have conflict that you're holding against your brother, go resolve that first. Take care of those things before you expect to get into the graces of God, which is a way of saying experiencing a better life. It gives us further details like fasting as to the world, pulling back from all the things that are happening out there to remove yourself from that mess that you can't help, to go find your own path to do what you want to accomplish instead of fighting against the groups that are dividing and continuing to fight. All of that is in the Jesus material. So this pattern is there and it's emergent, and Christianity is a way to carry the teachings of Jesus. But this becomes difficult because of what Christianity has become. And yeah, that's why I'm talking to specifically really the people here that are looking to take a spiritual path. You come up through Christian beginnings. You've got that material. You've got that background. You know what Jesus teaches. But you don't know the Tao Te Ching. You don't know the Dhammapada. You don't know... There's a lot of people that know Jesus' teachings, and I'm going to tell you, Jesus' teachings might be the most complete as far as this spiritual inward path, because it gives additional instructions. It also lets you know that if you're talking to people about it, that, you know, they might chastise you, criticize you, things like that. It's adding experience to it later on that also helps us with the story. So, yeah, I like using Jesus' teachings. However, the baggage of Christianity makes it difficult. Okay, but here's what I think is important right now. We are, in our environments, we come from Christian environments, we're around Christian people, Christian family. We are seeing something different. We're leaving Christianity behind as we're finding something else. But there's a couple of ways of going about this. You can be a theist or you can be an atheist. You can deny it completely. But this is where, if we're not interpreting the verse and we're reading it at face value or trying to interpret it in some way that it means something in the physical world, that we're just going to continually have conflict. Let me show an example of that. And I'm just going to take some Jesus teachings. I'm not going to pull up any specific verses and go word for word. But we know what these are. So there's a point where Jesus goes into a temple and flips over tables and throws out the money changers. And that's a story in the Bible that we're familiar with. There's another place where Jesus is talking and teaching, and he says it's not enough to love your family and friends, because even your enemy does that. If you want to get in God's good graces, or if you want to be right, then love your enemy as well. It's not enough to just love your family. You love everyone. You know, Jesus is not the divider. He's teaching more expansiveness. However, I have had plenty times where I've in discussions with a theist, a Christian theist, where I might say, I see Jesus as a bleeding heart liberal. He really was feed the hungry, take the shirt off your back, turn the other cheek kind of a person. But they'll grab a verse like the one about the tables and say, nope, you're wrong. He's not that person. Look at what happened here. And they use that verse to justify their own behavior that is angry and hurtful behavior towards other people, saying, yeah, Jesus did the same thing. But if you ask them, how do you reconcile that against the other verse about loving your enemy as well? The deer in the headlights. So when a person like that is trying to teach you, they are, they're cherry picking. They're grabbing what makes sense to them that fits with what they believe. They're finding something that works. They're disregarding things that don't work. Or in some cases, people that are a little bit more into it, a little bit more honest about Christianity, will work at trying to reconcile those differences and why they are there. When in all reality, if we use this process where you play every verse out in your psyche, if you read Lao Tzu or the Buddha, you understand that everything is cryptic. You're supposed to figure it out. Treat Jesus the same way. Like everything is cryptic, you're supposed to figure it out. That flipping over the tables thing, don't treat that as a literal story. It's going to be in conflict with other things that Jesus is saying. If, however, you play it out in the psyche and say that this is the temple and all of the things, the bad things that you have up in here need to be thrown out, and that creates inner peace, that's the forgiveness, that is the things that get you into the graces of God, who sees in secret, so rewards in secret. Yeah, up here. And once you do that, the conflict of interpretation goes away. But you have to interpret them all the same way. You don't say, oh, I'm going to interpret this one this way. Oh, I like the sounds of that one the way it is. You can't do that. That's how we end up with 33,000 different denominations. People are not using a process. What went wrong with Christianity is when the teachings from Jesus, what do we have, 40, 50, maybe 60 years as much later after Jesus supposedly died, where Paul emerges saying that, oh, I met Jesus on the road in a vision, and in this very short period of time learned all of what he has to teach. And here's what I'm going to tell you. If you just worship Jesus as your Savior, ask him into your heart, you're good to go. Follow the 10 Commandments. Join the church. Remember now, you're born a sinner, so you're screwed right from the get-go. You're going to die. You're just born that way. It's not your fault. Come and join the church. We got you covered. Man, I don't know why people buy into that. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Jesus' teachings are spot on. The idea that you just worship him, Jesus never said that. Jesus, if you go through all of his material, there is no point you can find where Jesus said, if you simply worship me, just ask me into your heart, I'm going to die for your sins. I got this. I got it for you. No, he laid out a list of things to do. The Romans said, just worship him. Jesus didn't say that. What are you going to do? That's where it got broke. That's where people go, oh, I just have to worship him. I don't have to follow his teachings. There are many Christians who follow Jesus' teachings. So I want to be careful here. I'm not blanketing everything. 33,000 different denominations. Some of them love you. Some of them hate you. That's Christianity. It's a train wreck. Christianity is, to me, not viable. The teachings of Jesus absolutely are. But Jesus didn't teach Christianity. No, he didn't teach what we see today. That's what we're looking to get at. But we have people who are Christians who aren't going to buy off on that, and there are people who are atheists, and these guys fight each other, and we're somewhere in the middle of that going, okay, both of you guys are wrong. I made a joke one time. How do you know if a Christian doesn't understand the Bible? Because they're a Christian. That wasn't a good joke. People don't understand it. Christians get mad at you and atheists go, yeah, you're right. They would be atheists otherwise. And you think, no, actually, the joke would also work this way. How do you know an atheist doesn't understand the Bible? Because they're an atheist. But neither one of them are right. There is a Buddha teaching in here, nested in a guilt-ridden religion that is a mess, and you're dealing with people that are in that, and you're trying to emerge. It's going to be tough. You're going to have fun. Okay, I would like to talk about some fundamental things about humans that is going to be problems with our experiences and our lives. First of all, I've talked before about the brain structure, the architecture, and I think that there's a significant part of that coming into play here. Again, we hear in the beginning of the material that not very many people are going to figure this out. So know that going into it, that you're not going to, I just found this out and I'm going to go spread it around and everybody's going to go, yay, thank you for bringing that back. That's not going to happen. If they're like you, they will do the same thing you do. We can't approach it that way. This part doesn't work this way. We are called because we've had it. Somehow we are on this path on our own. The people around you are going to talk with confidence about things that are very limited. They will think that you are closed-minded, when in all reality they are closed-minded. Here is what happens. Let's go back into our big self. Step back and look at Earth and watch what's happening and watch as we emerge as humans. And you came from a certain place and you got trained and conditioned that way and you became that. If you had been plucked out at birth and put somewhere else around the world and got trained and conditioned differently and wired differently, you would have become something different. We need to get that. The person that says you're not open-minded, you are not believing in God, what are they doing? They are responding to their local programming, and they are free thinking, of course, but they don't realize they're free thinking only within the box of programming that they were given. They don't stop to think, maybe there's something outside of what I was told. Maybe there's something bigger than me. And therein lies a problem. I just call it ignorance. One of my least favorite things to hear from confident theists is, no, I'm not going to study those other things. That's evil. It's demonic. And they're not. They've been told that. They are responding. They think they're coming up with that on their own, but they're not. They're just responding to what they were given. We are out there going, show me. You got a God? Yeah. I don't see it. Okay, let me keep looking. I'm not going to stop and say I have a conviction about this because I was told that. Once you see a big enough picture, you realize, wow, there's something more than this going on. They're not going to get that. They will tell you that you have a closed mind, when in all reality, they are convinced of, whatever they were mostly trained with, or something from their local area. There's a few variations, there's a few deviations. One of the things that we've probably all have experienced is being told with incredible confidence that the sheer amount of, I've had people tell me thousands of near-death experiences where people have come back with reports of, whatever is proof that there is an afterlife. Things like that are said with confidence and unchecked. And I would say, first of all, thousands, do you have records of that? Number one, that's a big number. You're just throwing that out there to make it sound big. Okay, that's fine. But there are billions of people on the planet. People that have a near-death experience and have seen Jesus are Christians, or people that are from Western society. Muslims don't come back and say, we saw Jesus. Neither do Indians or Buddhists. If there was something there that people were seeing, how come everybody comes back and reports something different? And how come most people that nearly die don't have a near-death experience? How come I can dream and wake up and sometimes it takes a while for me to realize, oh my gosh, that wasn't real. That was just a dream. It seems real. It's happening up here. I'm not calling people liars. I think people are looking for answers. They find things. They see things. I've talked before about the material that they describe, that there's those 5 components of who and what we are. But the one that we exist within, the field that we flow within, they couldn't quite explain what I believe is happening. That I think that when we evolved to be able to observe the physical world, to hear, to see, to smell, to interact with the physical world. And the physical in the universe is like 5% of it. 95% of the universe that exists is energy that we don't interact with, but something is there. It didn't bother us. We didn't need to see it. However, I think that we, through our central nervous system and our brain, are able to very somewhat feel a field, that is how we flow within the field. That's how we sense within the field. That is how, when we get together and worship together and start sharing feelings, that it amplifies up really big. Or if people are going out and protesting together and getting hateful, that it gets worse and worse, that the more people practice at something in groups, the more that experience happens. We can kind of see that field there. We've had gut feelings. We've had instinct feelings. I've had some things happen that would be, I've had some very specific things happen. When I was a youngster, I heard Larry's dead. My brother is dead. And I found him just a few minutes later in the woods where indeed he was dead. And how does that happen? That's an anecdotal story, by the way. I never believe these stories. Again, it could have just happened in my head. Ones like that, though, are so spot on that for me it becomes something that's important. I think that everybody has to look at their own experiences and say, how did that happen? That was too obscure. Okay, and to me this seems to be kind of a cosmic property that works, that there's some kind of a field that we can interact with if we do so in a certain way, if we approach it with confidence, with openness, that sometimes things happen, but most of the time, things don't happen. We hear about the times that do. I had that happen one time to me in life. That took like a couple of seconds out of an entire lifetime. So things like that are not happening all the time. They're happening just in bits and pieces. And why? Why? That's kind of a strange thing. But because that happens, if you are a person that says, I believe in God, I'm going to go look for him, and you start interacting with that field, it's going to work for you. If you say, I believe in Allah, it's going to work for you. If you say, I believe in the teachings of Buddha, it'll work for you. If you say, I believe in psychology, it'll work for you. Cosmic alignment, it'll work for you. You will prove to yourself what your conviction is that you start with, because there's things there that are obscure and it looks like you're interacting with them on the terms that you think, when in all reality, you're interacting with it based on mental conviction and kind of emotion, faith. We can all do that regardless of what we think is there. So people are proving to themselves that God exists or that something is there, while you're realizing, yeah, everybody sees the same thing. God's not gracing you actually specifically. Everybody gets the same thing. That's an important thing to see. To me, I would look at that more as a natural cosmic property than something supernatural or something that we don't have control over. And I will tell you from my own experience, since I started in a place in life where it was hurtful, and I started out in life with a lot of baggage inside of me, inside of my head. I had a lot of hurt, a lot of anguish, a lot of abandonment issues, anger. I had a lot of issues, and my life was not okay. And only at some point in time in my life, when it got bad enough that I called myself, I can't live with myself anymore. And you start working at things and resolving these things, that from the time from where I was headed then to where I am now in life is radically different. I changed my life by going after this, not by going after what was out there. And it was only because of desperation that I ended up turning that way. But that is something that emerges from, I can get my pathway out of Lao Tzu's material, Buddha's material, or Jesus's material. More as well, but those three right there have got pretty short verse that are easy. And I do think Jesus is the easiest one, but in order for us to study it like this, we almost have to do it in secret. Okay. When Jesus said to seek and knock, he listed no caveats. He didn't say seek and knock, but seek and knock in compliance with what the Roman Paul is going to specify later on as they develop the church. And seek and knock within the framework of what they tell you. He didn't say that. He said, seek and knock, period. Wide open. No caveats, no limitations, no restrictions. His material is very much telling us to emerge and move on. And you know what? The Romans knew that. That's a whole different story, but they're doing their own versions of this type of material as well. Searching for the Holy Grail is going to be like searching for the golden fleece or the kingdom of heaven within. The Romans knew this material. They knew what was nested in there. We just have to extract it. I don't know why things are so goofy the way they are. But I think our technology and our busy lives are what is interfering with us. Here's something else I wanted to say. It goes along with a video the other day about pulling back from the world. How this is something that is a way to self-observe. If you are exposed to some kind of media or something around you that you look at and it makes you angry or hurt or seethe or something like that, that is your attachment to that situation. That is the stuff you have to pull back from, because as we get caught up in that, we're actually adding to the field. We're adding the way we feel to the field. And I would recommend, instead of saying, looking at that and getting angry at it because it makes me feel worse, it makes the field worse, I have to pull back from that and focus a different direction, somewhere where I can benefit, as opposed to looking at something that is a detriment over here. Find somebody that you can benefit, that shows a different path, that goes a different course. Instead of fighting against somebody else's divisive issues, you are creating a new path to something while leaving that behind. We all have to do that. We have to make that shift. The world is divided because the people are divided. It's made up of the individuals. And if we are approaching it with our own divisions, then we are creating a bigger divided society. Only by everybody pulling back from that and finding the unity within themselves would then the humanity, being a larger part of the small, well, yeah, you get the idea. But you also see how many people are out there. It looks like an exercise in futility. But what do you want to do with your life? Let me see if I've got anything else listed down here. Yeah, I don't see anything else here. Please feel free to post them below. I just wanted to acknowledge that if you're on this path There's different things you can do, but if we are very familiar already with the teachings of Jesus, and we can extract ourselves from the supernatural and hold ourselves at an equal level to the teaching and not hold it as something that is above us that we can't access and that we can't touch. If we hold it there, we can't get to it. That's for the people that are carrying it. We're going to get access to it. So you have to make sure that you can look at it in a way that you're not looking at it with such reverence that it is something that you've put out of your reach. That's it, yeah. And you're not going to have success working with people around you that don't want you to make that trip. You'll just have to make the trip on your own, kind of quietly. I have some videos on interpreting Jesus in a playlist somewhere on my channel if you're interested. And I'm sticking on those that are, they get a little bit extensive as it is, but I've just done the Sermon on the Mount and the Sermon on the Plain and some comparative verses as well to see how this works. And it's just simply understanding that they are using analogous terms, or terms that are from the outside world that are analogous to something in our psyche. And that if you go explore, that there will be a hierarchy that is observable in there as well. There's a conscious that makes the judgment, that makes the call, that decides whether this experience is good or bad and stores it that way. So that conscious is there, and that conscious is in charge of creating the subconscious. And they're using an analog of male and female. This is 2,000 years ago, or 3,500, or whatever. They're using analogs that might not make sense to us, but let's just understand that that's what they are. It's not about a man and a woman. It's about a conscious and a subconscious, and they're trying to describe it in a way that the population who doesn't give a rat's hind end will still carry it anyway. They will make sure that this lesson gets to where it needs to go. They're bringing it to us. Appreciate that. Anyway, another thing they're doing is using offspring is one way to describe it. That the conscious is when the conscious has had an experience and says, "Oh, I'm ashamed of that," and then puts it away that way, that can be considered a bad offspring, a child. Son or daughter, doesn't matter. We've good and bad, Cain and Abel. We become split. We've got our good sides and our bad sides. So those can be analogous terms. And that the child acts out, or that the demon acts out, or a skeleton in our closet acts out. That's not a Jesus one, but it's the same global teaching. It is a weed growing out of our garden where the seed needs to be pulled out. All of those are going to be terms that are analogous to the process of the memories in our psyche that we're holding in a way that we don't want to emerge them, that we don't like them, or they're hurtful, or they're hateful, or something like that. But they do act out. We see them in society. They act out, and they act out under the nature of what they are. I've been thinking about this. You're trying to figure out what emerges from us. And it's hard to see sometimes. You think, I don't know why I've got something hidden away. And I realize if you have something growing in the ground and you don't know what the seed is, but eventually it fruits and you see an apple growing from it, oh, it's an apple seed. If you see an orange come from it, it's an orange seed. If you see a thistle coming from it, it's a thistle seed. So as we are watching life, whatever is emerging from people is a product of what is inside of them, but they're generally hiding behind something. And that can make it difficult to see. We do the same thing. If we are acting out, when we get triggered, and we're acting out, we're being triggered based on something that we have unresolved inside of us. And what is coming out of us is not our unresolved issue. It's the wall of anger, hatred, pain, shame, whatever it is that is emerging. So the truth of it is not emerging. What is coming out of us is an indicator of what is hidden in there. So, when we're watching big groups of really angry people that are against gays or against abortion or something like that, what are you seeing? We're seeing walls. We're seeing where the unresolved issues reside. That's exactly how this works. what is emerging from them is not something against gay people, because that's a sin against God. Imagine carrying flags or crosses in front of you to state your case. Are they really marching on behalf of America? On behalf of Christianity? They're marching on behalf of themselves, but they don't want to show the reason they're marching. So they're putting up something in front that is supposed to be a barrier between, some sort of a barrier between them and what is out there. You can see it. It's very observable. They don't represent Christianity or America. What they're doing is grabbing barriers that in their minds are above reproach. You don't question the flag or the cross. And they're using those as a barrier between them and, that's a wall. We're tribal. The issue is not Christianity. Although Christianity is a broken vehicle, there are people who are Christians who are just loving, kind people that follow the teachings of Jesus and don't care. There are people that are Christians that are gay, that love one another and love other people and don't have the kind of hatred and shame that others do. There's a point where all of these teachings are about purity. Jesus as well. Unfortunately for Jesus's work, it got hijacked and it got put in something that has the potential to make it wonderful or to make it hell. Roman Catholic Church, if you ever see this video, can you fix that? Please? All right. Here we are. Yeah, if you're going to study on your own and you're going to study Jesus, it's very doable. Okay, hope the video was helpful. I didn't have a game plan, honestly. I didn't plan on this video, but a few comments and questions made me realize, there's people out there that I can see in some comments that people are kind of reaching for certain things that they maybe don't want to ask for, but they're letting me know in subtle ways. So hopefully this video was helpful to someone. It's okay. Yeah. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be easy, but that's all right. It can be smooth and easy. You just have to extract yourself from the non-reality around you that is totally convinced that it is the reality that you need to jump on board with. Yeah, we're stuck in that mode with humanity. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. Love one another, and I'll see you on the next video.